You have such a perspective, obviously, on the arm care issue. You had Tommy John as well. So if you just look at maybe the evolution of arm care from, let's say, when you pitched in college in the late 90s to now, how different is it for prospects like you then to what you see now in the game?
I mean, it's totally different, and it's talked about now, truthfully. It wasn't talked about then. And I think we conditioned our bodies a little different when we were playing back in those days. And, I threw a lot of pitches. I mean, nobody would throw the number of pitches that I threw back then now. But my body was conditioned to do that. I didn't really start having injuries until I got to pro ball and they started limiting my pitch count. I was a little bit different. I like to condition my body to throw 120, 130 pitches a game. I get to pro ball and they limit me to 60 pitches, 80 pitches. And the next thing you know, I'm in the big leagues and I'm throwing 110 pitches. And then my injuries started piling up. So, I mean, I think there's different perspectives. Back then, we didn't lift much. Now guys are lifting. You see the size of these pitchers. They're huge. Their bodies are in great shape. I mean, they used to tell us back in the day you can't pull fat. So the pitchers used to be a little heavier. And nowadays these guys are lean and, they're throwing the ball so hard and there's so much stress on their arms. And, it is a little bit different world, and especially travel ball now is much different than it was when I was coming up.
I want to get into travel ball in a second. I know a lot of LSU fans have looked at LSU having 8 pitchers on the shelf right now going, what's going on at LSU? But the reality of it is, Kurt, like right now, South Carolina, for example, their pitching staff is just decimated right now with injury. So it's not something that's unique, even though we pay attention more to LSU. What do you see with the transition of young kids from high school to college that maybe is leading to some of the struggles early in their careers?
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's definitely not a college thing. It's a lot of this is guys that have pre-existing injuries when they before they come to college, or they've thrown so much, whether it be the perfect game circuit, if you will, or travel ball on the way up. And I coach now with my kids. I have a 14-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I see that young kids are pitching on Saturdays and Sundays in these tournaments. And that is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I think you probably talk to every orthopedic surgeon and they tell you that is what is starting to cause some of these shoulders and elbows to break down. Is your kid can't pitch, even if they're throwing 1 or 2 innings on Saturday, they shouldn't pitch two days in a row. And I think this is really the first wave of kids coming through that real travel ball circuit, getting to this next level. And it's just the wear and tear, I think, is adding up. So I think we need to do a better job as youth coaches and picking our times. It's not really the pitch count. It's the back-to-back days. It's the number of throws, catching and pitching in the same day. And it's things like that, I think, that lead to the wear and tear and the long-term stress, not just what they're doing at LSU, because they watch their pitch count there so much from what I've seen. Those guys aren't overthrowing and not being overused at LSU. It's coming from, summer ball or before they get there.
And Kurt Ainsworth's our guest. Can you spark something in my mind? Can you draw a comparison to, you said like this is the first wave of travel ball, is kind of how you phrased it.
Yeah.
Can you compare youth leagues now, travel ball stuff, to what you did when you were 12 to 15 years old?
Yeah, I want to say I was probably on the first wave of playing a lot of games, right? We played a lot of games, but we still did it during the midweek a lot. We only went to some certain tournaments. We didn't go to travel every weekend. Nowadays, you're practicing during the week, and then you're playing, sometimes up to 4 and 5 games in one day on a Sunday because you play until you lose. And I think that's what's crazy. Out of all the games I played, I'd play 50 or 60 games as well in a summer, but I never in my life ever played more than 2 games in a day. And now if you only play 2 games on a Sunday, you're leaving before the championship game. And that's one of my big stress points with USSSA, who's a big sanctioning body, and we're very close with those guys and like the organization, is I'm really pushing to limit the number of games you have to play to win a tournament. And I think here we've been accustomed to, you have to play 3, 4, and 5 games on a Sunday to win, and that's just the best team doesn't win, and you end up throwing kids more than they should. And so this group of kids now in college have spent their whole life coming up through that system.